And in our last lecture regarding EJB development, we have covered the theory part, and this part of the unit, especially the unit 5, EJB is mainly important for your theory exam, as there is no such practical is being added in your practical syllabus from this part, from EJB development. So I would not suggest you to go and check this video for theory and all for this part of the unit. I'm making this video as some of the students asked me to know more about EJB or how to develop a EJB, as it is not a community what to say, the motive of using EJB is to develop commercial and enterprise websites. So such kind of environment and such kind of features and specification will be used when you will be working in IT companies. So some of the students asked me to create this video. For theory exam, I would recommend you to not to go into such details. But if you want to explore EJB, then it is good if you can check this video. There are some prerequisites to run a EJB based application. Even if you have created a EJB application and if you have not provided the appropriate environment for your project, then still it will not be working on the server as well. So the very first requirement is you need to install a particular server that provides EJB container. Okay, so in the first lecture of EJB, I have also mentioned all the possible application servers where you can execute your EJB based application, because all of those servers provides your EJB container. So we have options like JBoss, GlassFish, WebLogic, WebSphere. I have used GlassFish, and because I have used this in IT industry as well, so I'm very much comfortable with GlassFish. So I'll make the implementation of EJB using GlassFish. You can download the GlassFish server using the given link as well. The second requirement is J2EE support ID. Okay, so it is very much similar to the Eclipse and the JSP projects we have created. Those projects are also enterprise projects, so you need to provide a J2EE environment for that as well. The third prerequisite is you need to have a web app development project. Okay, so if you open your IDE and you are in your J2EE perspective in your IDE, and then you click on the file or new project, then you must be able to see such kind of options like web dynamic project, web app project, because with the help of these projects you can create servlet, JSP or EJB based project. Okay, the only difference between JSP and servlet and the EJB based project is the type of server. Okay, so for JSP and this and the servlet we have used Tomcat, but Tomcat is not enough to execute your EJB based application. So we are going to use different server. But the good thing is, even if we are using GlassFish, you can execute your JSP or the servlet based project over the GlassFish server as well. So with the use of GlassFish, you are not restricted to use only to perform some kind of specific projects only. You can execute servlets, JSP and the EJB based project as well. But by using Tomcat, it is not possible. Okay, the few more things I would like to tell you about the EJB. EJB is purely the enterprise edition based projects. Okay, so it is not designed for the free or community versions, like you are using Eclipse IDE for the community version, like you have not paid the monthly subscription for the J2EE support IDE. Then for such IDEs, we have very restricted functionalities of using such kind of enterprise applications. Still, we have options, and for the testing and development, uh, Oracle and other companies have provided such environment so that you can test your even the EJB based application as well, but it is restricted and you are not able to execute all the functionalities of enterprise web applications, but still we can check. Okay, so and the another thing is, even if you download GlassFish server, it is not that easy to integrate it with your IDE. Okay, it is little difficult, but over the internet or the YouTube, or I will provide you the link of the book I usually refer, and I have read this book, so you can also check this book to know more about the GlassFish server and how to integrate with your IDE. So the good thing is, you can still perform your EJB based application using your community version IDE like Eclipse. Okay, so let's start to make a EJB based project. Okay, but these are the prerequisites. If you don't meet all these prerequisites, then still your EJB based web application is uncompleted. You are not able to execute it over the server as well. So let's start by making EJB based application. Uh, Before we will be making EJB based application, first I will show you how to execute a servlet based application over the GlassFish, and then I will make changes in the servlet and convert it into the EJB. Okay, before even converting it to the EJB, I will also discuss about the difference between the enterprise Java beans and the simple beans, so that you can understand how the EJBs are different from the beans. So I'll do it in three parts. The first is I'll make a servlet and run on the GlassFish. Second, I'll use a bean, okay, in the servlet. The third thing is I will remove the bean, and instead of bean I'll use EJB. Okay, so that with this flow you will be able to understand why and what is the need of EJB. Okay, it will give you a very clear picture about it. So let's start. So guys, now let's create the first of all the servlet which can be run over the GlassFish server. So if you are able to see that I have already integrated the GlassFish server in my IDE. I have already provided you the link of the book that can help you to understand the GlassFish server and how to integrate it with any IDE. Or you can also use the content over the internet. There might be some YouTube video as well to integrate your GlassFish server with your IDE. So let's create first of all a servlet so that we can run that servlet. As I already mentioned that the JSP or the servlet we can run over the GlassFish. Then we will convert that servlet into a bean based project and eventually the EJB based project. So let's create. So how to do that? It is the same as we have used earlier. Go to the new and then go to the dynamic web project. So to save the time, I have already created such project, choosing the name of the project EJB project. So this is my project. Okay, so in that, if we want to create a servlet, we need to have some kind of uh, default resource for the client, so that the client can enter the detail. So what we are trying to achieve using this servlet, we are trying to add two numbers that entered by the client, and our servlet will calculate the sum of those two numbers and return the sum to the client. So this we will be doing with our servlet. So for that, let's create a default index page, or the default page that will be shown to the client. So I have already created that page as index.jsp inside the web content folder. So as you are able to see that this is the JSP page. Okay, simple HTML code in which user will enter two numbers, and when the user will hit submit button, it will call add numbers resource. So in the request, as it is a post request, value 1 and value 2 will be appended as a request body. Okay, so that the servlet can get these two values. As it is a post request, it will create a request with a body. So in the request body, we will have value 1 and value 2, and these values can be extracted by your servlet as well. But before creating the servlet, we need to provide the mapping. Okay, so this is the resource will be called by your application. So where the resource management happen in the web XML file. So I have already added some code there for this URL. Okay, so this is the resource the web XML file should provide the link to. So add numbers is the URL that index file is forwarding. Then the container of your project will come to this web XML file and know which servlet is being called. So as this is the servlet, this is inside com.akash package, and the name of the servlet is add two numbers. Okay, for this URL pattern, this is the servlet, and where the container will locate the servlet class file in add two numbers. So to save the time, I have already created this servlet. So let's open this servlet, and where it will be located inside the Java resource file. So this is the servlet. So as we know that to implement any servlet, we have three choices. Either we have to implement servlet interface or two abstract classes like HTTP servlet or the generic servlet. In this case, I have implemented HTTP servlet. Okay, if we are implementing HTTP servlet, we have to provide at least one definition, either of doGet or doPost. So our request is post, then we will be implementing doPost method with HTTP servlet request and HTTP servlet response. So as you know, the request that came to web XML file was post request. Okay, post request means the request has a body. Okay, so with the use of request, we can extract the variables from the request. So we are getting the get parameter value 1 and value 2 entered by the user. Okay, as it will be a string, then we are forwarding this using an integer wrapper class. Okay, so with this integer, we can parse the integer from the string, and we are storing it in ing. Okay, so and now we are calculating the sum of these two numbers, and we are showing this result to the client. What is out.print? We have used the response get writer. It means we are accessing the buffer of response, and in that buffer we are printing this. Okay, so far this is clear. So now the next task is to run this project. So before running the project, the GlassFish server provides you the glimpse of the real-time applications. So whenever you will be working in IT industry, this will be the appropriate way to deploy and execute your application. Okay, so first we need to deploy this application over the server, GlassFish server. Then only we'll be able to execute it over the GlassFish server, as the GlassFish server provides the EJB container for that. But in that case, we have not created any EJB, the enterprise beans. It is a simple servlet, but still we need to deploy it. So what we can do, we right click on the GlassFish server, and there is an option called add and remove. So go to add and remove, and this is our project EJB, and add this project and click over finish. So it is not going to execute automatically. Okay, it is now being deployed over the GlassFish server. So to execute the this project, we will go to the deployed application. So we have deployed only one application over this server. This is our application. Okay, so if we are going to run this project, then it will call the default resource. Our default resource is index.jsp. It will provide you two input box to enter two numbers, so that the servlet can return the sum of these numbers. So to run this project, right click on EJB project, and it is showing that open in browser. I'll provide you a simplest trick to execute this project without going into such details. What you can simply do, go to the default, your default resource. This is our default resource, and right click on that and click run as and over the server, because this is the first resource will be shown to the client. So we have two ways: either you right click over the index file or run it over the server, or go to the actual deployed application and then run it over the server. Anyway, they both will run your default resource. So the standard way is to go to the deployed application EJB project and then open in the browser. So it is showing you to enter two numbers, so enter 1 and 2. It will show you the addition of these numbers with this particular message. Okay, and message is addition is using servlet. So let's look at that. So it is saying that addition is using servlet. So we have not touched any part of the EJB yet. This is the simple servlet application as far. Okay, but we have learned little bit learn about the GlassFish deployment and how to execute our project. But if you are able to see in this request, the business logic is written inside the do post method, and this is not the recommended way. You have to separate your business logic with the service method. So this is actually the service method. So what we to achieve that, what we can do, we can call a different function to calculate your business logic. So let's create a different method which will be calculating your business logic, and we are not calculating anything in the service method because it should call the services in your application. Okay, you understand why it is called the service method? Because it is only to call or manage your services in your application. So in that case this would become a service because it is calculating your business logic. Okay, so we return I plus j here. But to see the change over the server, let's change in the print as well using servlet when separating business logic from the service method. Okay, so it will show you the same output, but before doing so, let's understand that we have created changes in the servlet. Okay, then you need to build this project again, you need to deploy this project again over the server. Until unless you don't redeploy this project over the server, the changes will not be reflected. Okay, why I'm saying that, let's understand. Even if I just simply click on run as and run over the server, wait for it, it is saying there is an internal error. Why? Because you made the changes and you have not deployed it. Okay, redeployed it. So what to do for that case? You need to redeploy this application because you have made the changes in the application, in your web application. So this is the real scenario in your real-time applications as well. So whenever you are going to work in IT industry, this would be the ideal scenario, that if you made any changes, if you make any change in your application, you have to redeploy your application over the server. Then only you will be able to see the changes over the server. So for that, what you can do, just simply right click on that where we have deployed our application, go to add and remove, go to EJB project and remove it from the server. Click over the finish. Now there is no such project over it, otherwise you have to overwrite your server. So this is the ideal way to redeploy your project. Again, go to the add and remove and deploy it over the server. So it is only for the deployment. Again, what you need to do to run your, you need to run your project, go to the deployed application EJB project and then go to open in the browser. So you must understand that your application is redeployed over the server, then only the server is able to read the changes you have made. Okay, if you have not redeployed your project over it, then how the server will understand? It is not like Tomcat, it is a separate server. Okay, it should show you the result with the different message. Okay, so addition is using servlet when separating business logic from the service method. Okay, here if you have noticed, we have made a very good change. The change is we have separated our business logic from the service method, but still it is not enough. Why? Let's say a lot of servlets are adding two numbers. If this is the scenario, then this method should be a public or a generic method for all the servlets. Then in that case, what we can do, we can create a bean of this method or this logic, so that for every servlet we can use the same bean to get the logic. If we are not doing so, then we have to provide such method multiple times in each servlet. So instead of doing so, what we can do, we create a bean, we write this logic inside that bean, and whatever number of like hundreds of servlets if we are going to use, then we don't need to recreate this method. We can use, because you are giving separate input to get the different output, but the logic is same for all the servlets. Okay, so this is also not a very recommended way to separate your logic from the service method. So what we can do, we delete this method from here, we create a bean, okay, in which we will write this method. That bean will calculate this for you, and the bean will return the value for you. Okay, with this help, the bean will handle the logic part. Okay, it will be separated from the service class, not from the method itself, and the many or unlimited number of servlets can use the same bean. Okay, so to achieve that, I have created a bean, already created a bean. Let's look at the bean. In that bean, I have created I, j, k, three variables. I have created getter and setters for all these variables. Also, I have added one method which will be calculating the business logic. So this is actually for the business logic of your application. Okay, because if we will be calling add method using that bean, it will be returning. It is not returning, we have to access the k from that bean, then only we'll be able to get the output of this business logic. So this is the simple way to create a bean. But this is, if you are able to see, this is the basic Pojo class. Okay, this is just add a bean, this is the functionality only. Okay, but to create a bean of out of that, it means we want to create a new object of this in our service method. So how to achieve that? Let's go to the this function. So instead of that, remove this. Let's make little changes. Instead of using servlet, I'm using bean. So we have not used any such method here. So to our bean name is add bean, object, new, wait, it is a little slow. Just wait. Okay, it is showing that we have not imported this add bean, so let's import it because we have created in a different package. Now with the help of object, we can set the value of I and j. Okay, object dot set I, provide I here, object dot set j, and again the same, the bean is calculating it for you. You don't need to pass anything from now on. It will calculate it and preserve the data, okay, in K. So for that you need to access that K, okay. So obj dot get K, and you need to print the K, okay. So this is the way you are saying that I am not even separating the business logic. I'm telling a bean to do things for me, okay. And what is the objective of providing the business a different bean for your logic is the repeat. If there is a repetitive operations in different servlet, then this bean add beans can be used any number of times by creating a new object of it, and it will create a different copy with different input using the setter methods. So it will do the same work, but I have made the changes in the application, so I need to redeploy our application. What is the correct way? Go to this add remove it from the server, finish it. It will make some changes. It is saying started and synchronized. Then again go to and right click, add remove, redeploy it, finish it. Again it is deployed, it started and synchronized. Then you can execute your application, okay. So now the business logic is being separated, and also bean is calculating it for you. So now it is saying addition is using bean. So still we have not used EJB, but we are clear that we have separated our business logic from the service class, not for even the service method, but from the service class. And we have created a separate bean to calculate our logic, so that the same logic can be used for different servlet as well. It is not restricted for one servlet only. We don't need to write the same logic for different beans, okay. All the beans, if they are trying to or they want to calculate addition of two number, they can call the add bean to calculate it for you. But here still we have a problem. What kind of problem? Let's understand. Bean is okay. So this is the application where we are 100% sure that your bean container is over the same server, okay. So in general, in IT industry, we divide your client application with the server application. But in this case, if you are creating bean by yourself, you are saying that you are creating a reference of this bean, and also the same server is responsible for creating the object of this bean as well. But as I mentioned, EJB is for distributed systems, where you use the references, you may use the references of the object, but the creation may happen on the different server. So ideally, usually the client is at the different server, and the EJB or the logic will be executed at the different server. So this is also not ideal for distributed system, because we are responsible for creating the bean. So it will fail for distributed system, where the business logic is written over different server and client is calling. So in this case, if this is the client application, it is saying that I am creating the object. Still, if I don't have the implementation of add beans, okay, so add beans, if this method is at the server side, then it will not be able to do the purpose, right? To solve the purpose, okay. So in that case, we want such a mechanism where you want a container to decide how and when to create object, from where to create object, okay. So EJB is such kind of a specification or a framework, you can say, that provides you such functionality that you can distribute your work, okay, where you can distinguish between your client application and the server application. So what we want to achieve here is, we want the EJB container to handle the the creation of the object, because the bean could be on the different server. You can only use the reference, but if you have such a mechanism where there is a unit that is handling the bean creation, irrespective wherever the bean is, if there is such a mechanism, it would be great. So we can divide our work on different web application. It would be very fast and very efficient, and this is the ideal way. In the IT industry, they handle different operations, like they do business logic at one server, they do payment logic at one server, they do shipping, and they do database logic at different servers. So load balancing will be there will not be too much load on one server, and with the help of this, the result would be very fast. It is very efficient, as the one server is not responsible for everything. There are a lot of distributed systems that are helping to achieve the same task, okay, with different tasks to be performed, with their individual server or web application. So this is also not ideal for the distributed system. I hope we are clear. So to achieve an EJB, what we first of all what we need to do is, we don't want to create this object by ourselves. We only need to provide a, let's say, the reference, and let the container, EJB container, do the work for us. So for to achieve that, I have created a separate EJB. Okay, the name of this, add EJB. So what I'll do, I'll add EJB. This is, we only need to create the reference of the object. And now let's make a change. This is the EJB. Okay, and what we are trying to do, we are, as it is a EJB bean, then we have to use the annotation EJB here as well. Okay, so it is saying that you have to import the file. It is saying that you need to import java x.ejb. So I'll tell you, I have already imported in my project, but in your case it will not be that simple. For you have to right click on your project, go to the build path, okay, and then go to the library part of your project. Okay, go to the add external jars, and wherever you have extracted your GlassFish server, you have to add one library from it, J2EE library from the same. So I have extracted my GlassFish server in my C drive. Let's find out the GlassFish, and this is the GlassFish. So inside GlassFish, go to the library, and you have to add this J2EE Java EE library file, or the zip file, in your library of your class path. I have already added like this, because if you have not added it, you will not be able to find this import library in your project. So what I'll do, I'll simply import it, but in your case it will say this import library is not there in my system, but I have already added, so this is not the issue. Let's import this as well, add EJB, because it is in the different server. It is saying is still some problem. Let's look at it. Okay, so there is a problem. I have created it inside the object. This is not inside the method. This is not, we need to globalize it and enlarge the scope of the EJB. Okay, then we need to optimize our import as well. For that, this is what we are not going to use. We will look at the EJB. Okay, as we have used this annotation, EJB annotation, let's look at this EJB class. So it is saying the same, it is doing the same thing like we have used for the bean, right? The same method, the same getter and setter, regardless. Only the one thing is different, that we have annotated it with the stateless. Okay, so this is, if you remember in the last lecture, we have covered that either you have to use stateless or stateful session bean to write your business logic. Okay, so this is the mandatory condition. You have to use stateless or stateful annotation with your EJB session beans. So this is the session bean where we have written our business logic. So I'm using the stateless. Stateless means this EJB is not responsible for the previous interaction with the client. It is not going to store the previous value of the object. For every request, it will be for every request or for every object, it will store the new values of these variables. But in case of a stateful, it remembers the previous interaction with the client as well. So it is the simple one. So this is the similar to the bean creation. The only difference is stateless annotation with the EJB session bean. Add bean, we don't need to use it right now. Let's go to our servlet. We have annotated it with the EJB. It means we are saying add EJB is the class, and the creation of this object will be handled by the EJB container. So we don't need to create the object for ourselves. So this is in case of EJB. If we are using Spring framework, then we use auto-wired in case of annotation EJB. So every framework provides the different annotations for for the auto wiring your beans. So in this case, the EJB container will be handling your object creation. Okay, again we have chosen the name object. It will set ij add and then getting the k and printing EJB bean. Again we have to redeploy this application over the server. So the best way is to go to add remove. So let's see if we have saved all the files. Add EJB is fine, web application is fine. Okay, so let's remove it and publish the changes. Again go to, it is already synchronized, so let's go add and remove. Again redeploy our application, finish and run the file. To run the file, it is synchronized, then so that we can run our application. Go to that and open in the browser. So now the business logic will be calculated by the EJB using the stateless session bean. 1 2 enter. So this is using addition using EJB bean. Okay, so we have created the EJB bean. It is different from the previous example where we have calculated our business logic using a simple bean, where we have created the bean by ourselves. In this case, the EJB container is responsible for creating the bean. And the advantage of using this bean is the implementation or this add bean class could be at the different server. Okay, so that the load balancing or the efficient networking could be there, so that efficient request and response could be there. So this is how you implement your EJB. If you are new with EJB, it would not be that simple, because the integration of GlassFish or any such JBoss other servers, it's not that easy with the community versions. It is a community version, and there is a very little support out there for EJB based application over the internet as well. So but I hope that you will be able to get the glimpse of EJB, how to create a stateless session bean where you write a business logic and how to execute it. What is the need of EJB first of all, even though the bean creation was already there. So again I should repeat it, this is not for your theory exam. This is for those who want to learn EJB in detail or want to implement EJB by themselves, because this is give you the simulation kind of environment for the real-time application that you are going to use in IT industries. I highly recommend such kind of development for you if you are a Java developer, because this is even the very what to say, it could be a head start for your developing enterprise based applications. uh, okay, so I think you will be able to do it if you you know go through the steps I have mentioned the way. Don't Do not forget to mm, pay attention over the prerequisites I have discussed earlier in this video. uh, so thank you guys. We have already covered the theory syllabus, and this is not necessary for your theory exam. uh, my best wishes for your theory, and do prepare well. uh, mm, okay, so thank you guys and best of luck